Oh, Andrea Tessmann.
Hello, Kirk Buchner.
December 18th, 1961. Neither of us were listening to anything. Nothing.
Nope.
Not a thing. But if we were alive, we could have turned on the radio and then... Well, I'm not going to sing it. Do you want to take a shot at it?
No, not really.
Well, I mean...
My voice isn't that high.
God...
We can go, oh, we mow it, oh, we mow it, oh, we mow it.
Yes, we could do that. Yes, so if you haven't already guessed, or I guess you did because you looked at the title, right? You must have. I would have done that before I clicked on anything to listen to. We're talking about the 1961 lone hit by the Tokens, The Lion Sleeps Tonight. A song that's got a very complex history, and you wouldn't think that it does.
No, when I picked this last week, I was just thinking we were picking a silly one-off, one-hit wonder type thing. I knew there was some controversy over the origins of it, but I didn't actually know anything about this. So, yeah.
In theory, I mean, I guess there still is, and it's such an interesting story. So when we're talking about a doo-wop group, and I got to preface this, I've talked about genres that I love and genres that I hate. I hate doo-wop. I just don't get it. It's so much of it, and I think a lot of it is because of the high-pitched voices that'll come with it. I'm not a high-pitched voice male connoisseur singer or audio person, if that makes any sense. I'll tell you this: if you ever pick a Frankie Valli song, no. I'll do it because that's a rule. But I never got it.
So I know what to do to annoy you. Good to know.
Yeah, exactly. Having said that, I like this song, and it works with the high-pitched voice. It can't work any other way with that. Well, I mean, it could, I suppose, but am I wrong on this?
No, and I always wondered why they went with a male falsetto and not a female voice for it. But obviously that's because that's the way it was sung in Africa, with a men's chorus and a fairly traditional call and answer style music. But I also thought that the actual female soprano that they have in this recording was a synthesizer. I didn't actually realize that was a real voice because she sounds fake. But it's a real female soprano, and there's actually a live version that the soprano just kills it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess before we get to Jay Siegel, the man in question with the Tokens, we would be doing such a disservice if we didn't talk about where this came from and how it got to the United States or to North America.
Well, that's the whole story. That's the wildness of this is, the convoluted, all over the place, twisted background of it.
So we have to go all the way to South... Yeah, I guess so. So we have to go all the way to South Africa. Now, I'm not certain...
Not just South Africa, but 1930s South Africa.
That's true, yeah. So we're talking about this was so long ago. This was before they actually instituted apartheid, which is crazy to think about. But it was still not a great place for. Oh God, no. For the blacks, it was. No, not at all.
Pretty rough.
No, definitely, and we have some similar tales that we've already discussed in various songs. We've got the common thread of appropriation and just the bigger thread of all, studio head corruption. And so we go back to a gentleman named Solomon Linda. And in 1939, I mean, he was a reasonably successful musician in Southern Africa. Not really that much further beyond it. But, we're still talking about a heavy population and his big hit, Mbube. And I apologize to I don't think we have any Zulu listeners.
But if we do, let us know.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've got that right. Mbube, which just simply means lion.
Mbube or Yimbube, depending on, So, which roughly translates to "you are the lion."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's really a song about the lion. It's not exactly even talking about what the lion's doing. And like you said earlier, it's a call and response, and it's just the beautiful African harmonies that it's so rich and it's so lush, and it makes the song very special.
I can hear Jasper in the background there.
So we might as well just sort of acknowledge that. My dog, Jasper the Friendly Corgi, who you can follow at Jasper_the Friendly Corgi on Instagram, has decided to make his presence known by bringing me one of his toys. He had a toucan toy, and now he's brought the alien squirrel. He has fancy toys.
So, anyways, back to Yimbube. He's a, successful sort of regional musician playing at concerts and places with his band, the Evening Birds. Now I'm blanking on it. Anyways, he is working
Evening Birds,
sweeping the floors at the only record studio in south of the Sahara, and gets the opportunity to record this song. And then he sells the rights to it for the equivalent of about $1. Literally gives them away, basically. Mm-hmm. But you think, so this record company is owned by, I believe it was an Italian. So we're looking at whites. He would have had no way of actually promoting the song or getting it recorded or it being successful at all beyond his local band.
Right.
So I can totally understand why he did it, but also it's a perfect example of oppression and of taking advantage by the record company. And it's the first of several opportunities where he was taken advantage of, and the record company took advantage of someone who wasn't educated, didn't really know the legalities of it, was very poor, and he just wanted to record his song and get it out there. And so he sold it for basically nothing.
Mm-hmm. And to be fair, I mean, a lot of people just don't know any better when it comes to that sort of thing. I mean, look how many of us right now we just sign and agree everything on whenever we're just trying to get something done on Apple.
Mm-hmm.
And
oh yeah, I'm sure about 38 people own my soul, so that's okay.
Well, 39. That's Jasper's brought out the stuffed turkey, by the way. That's another one of his toys.
Yes.
Oh, Jesus. Jasper, my dog. He's cute, guys. It's a corgi. It's really cute. I'll put a picture up there on... Yeah, why not? Follow him on Instagram.
He's very cute.
He's very cute. He used to beat up Andrea's dog on a regular basis.
Yeah, when she was about 12 weeks old.
That's how I remember.
She got twice or three times the size of him.
I think Jasper's got... Yeah, Jasper's got something to say about that. Where I think everything gets really interesting is when so many things just work their way across to North America. Especially back then. We're talking about not only an era where Africa does not even resemble what it resembles today. Literally, these records are shipped on a boat when it was discovered by a gentleman named Alan Lomax. Oh my God, my dog. Hey, Jasper, buddy, I'm trying to do a show here. I don't do 2 takes. Okay, he's not impressed. He doesn't care. He's brought 3 different toys that he's never brought out in months. Buddy, I don't edit these things.
Uncle used to go and steal his toys and then just destroy them on your living room floor and then go steal another one. And
well, that's true.
He made it through like 6 toys in a night once.
Yeah, well, most of these are the same toys. Most of these came from Jasper, like the town where we lived in, not the dog. All right, so the album, Jasper.
Right, back to the record.
Buddy. The album makes its way to New York City and somehow gets its way into the hands of Pete Seeger. Actually, according to this, though, it was a pretty simple thing for it to get there because one of the musicologists, Alan, he just sort of like gave it to Pete. Pete Seeger, for those not aware,
yeah, they were buddies.
Yeah, like Pete was like he's an icon in folk music. Somebody who I don't see us ever really doing a deep dive into it. Folk music it never really charted all that well based for our purposes. But it was a real big deal, and then I was really paying a lot more attention on Pete and just sort of like his ethos and this working man guy who just wanted to be a man of the people. And when he did cover this song, he gave it as much respect as he could, but not knowing the whole backstory of it because he didn't know that. Well, he didn't know who Solomon was.
Originally, he didn't know much about it. He was the one who mistranslated it from Mbube to Wimbowe.
Mm-hmm.
And he just he really liked it. He thought it was a cool sound.
Mm-hmm.
So he started playing it. And his version of it is very similar to the original recording of it in that there's not really any words aside from a wimbowe, and then he's doing the falsetto soprano over top of it. So that's, he also, all of the controversy around crediting, when he found out that Linda wrote it, he immediately tried to send him $1,000 and write over his shares of the royalties to him.
Yeah, class guy.
Which apparently never happened because Pete Seeger never paid any attention to money and just kind of, I think in one quote he said, "Oh, I don't know, I feel really bad, but I never paid any attention to money." So he tried, but apparently, even though he attempted to do that, the money never actually made it back to the estate of Solomon Linda, who I believe, when did he die? He died in the mid-50s.
So early 60s, I believe.
Was it early 60s? Okay.
Yeah.
So, and he died in poverty. He had apparently the equivalent of about $22 in his bank. He had 8 children. He was about 50-something. And 2 of his children died of malnourishment. Like, this guy was the epitome of broke, starving artist, and add to that apartheid and everything else going on in South Africa. Like, he could have used the money.
For sure.
And his estate could have used the money. So, So Pete Seeger got his hands on it, really liked it, recorded it. And played it at concerts. I heard one of the versions I listened to was a live recording of it where he was getting the audience to do the wimbowes. And yeah. So at that point, oh crap, what was his band?
The Weavers.
I don't have my notes. The Weavers, yeah. So the Weavers had a pseudonym that they used as the writing credit so that the record label didn't get all of the profits because it's folk music. They did actually record a lot of stuff that was in the general domain and didn't have copyright on it anymore. So in order to actually just eke out a bit more of the profit on some of these songs that they weren't stealing from, they were just folk songs. Things like, for example, Greensleeves. I don't know if the Weavers ever did Greensleeves, but everyone and their dog has done Greensleeves. and you don't pay royalties on it because
That's what Jasper was actually doing right now. He was playing that with the toys. Greensleeve.
Of course, yeah. So anyways, so they had a pseudonym that they used when they were recording and publishing these, what they thought were folk songs. So Pete Seeger published this with a writing credit to the band's pseudonym. But then, as I said, when he found out that, there was actually a guy that wrote this, it's not just a generic folk song, he gave him credit. And I think he did basically the best he could have done. He could have
followed up.
Money went to him.
Because he just said, hey, you're going to do the right thing. You know, like the guy was, he was like Gilligan. Like just trusting everything. And like, do you ever watch Survivor?
Not for a very long time, and not often even when I did.
Okay, well, there was this guy in the second season or third season, and he was there not even trying. He was the only participant not trying to win. Like, I just want to see how society how we can just sort of function as a society, man.
I think that kind of epitomizes folk music in general.
Yes, and sort
folk
of like
music, as you said, it's an interesting phenomena that it's forever been popular, but it's never been the big thing. You still eat folk fest today. You get massive crowds at. People love folk music. They just don't necessarily top charts.
No, and when this did top the chart, it wasn't a folk song, which I guess we can sort of like fast forward to where we go here with the Tokens, who this wasn't their only hit. They had a couple minor hits, but nothing like this. Like nothing even close to it. So, but they did finally anglicize the whole thing. So a guy named George David Weiss got sort of tasked with putting the English words together. So the only thing I guess he knew was the lion. So he ran with that. And then he came up with, in the jungle, the mighty jungle, the lion sleeps tonight. And as much as I think you and I, we watched the same documentary about this whole song, and the guy really comes off like a real nerdlinger. But let's be honest, that's a great line. Who doesn't love a lion? Hey, sleeping lion. This great big beast. In the jungle, it's perfect.
Except lions don't live in the jungle.
Well, why let facts get in the way of a good song?
That's true. Never has before.
But I thought the words itself were simple. They worked.
Mm-hmm.
I thought. And just sort of like putting this guy in perspective. So he's a member of the Songwriters Hall of Fame. He's passed away some time ago. But, other things that he did, Can't Help Falling in Love, that Elvis really knocked out of the park. So he's not a nobody. Also, too, another one, What a Wonderful World.
I didn't know he wrote that.
Yeah, well, he co-wrote that, but still, that's three giant songs. Now, one thing I couldn't really determine is how much he really knew of Solomon's story. Probably not much. I don't know if that was just a job for him that took off and did well.
I think it was just a job. I don't think that anyone really knew much about Solomon because aside from Pete Seeger, after that recording...
No one tried either.
Nobody cared, I think. They figured, well, he's just some black man in South Africa that's never going to actually know anything about this.
Mm-hmm.
But also, Solomon's name disappeared again off of any subsequent performances and recordings. So, yeah, obviously, I don't think that much was known about him. I think he was just writing some lyrics for a song.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he probably just knew, okay, this came from Africa. I'm going to try to make this sound African. Now, yes, this version is kind of what I suppose a lot of white people would imagine Africa to be. And that's part of it, but it's also it's catchy as shit.
Mm-hmm.
It just is. And, like taking away sort of the white-black appropriation aside, is this a fun song? Yeah.
Definitely a fun song.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's knowing what I know about it now, I can't unhear or unlearn all of that stuff, if that makes sense. Because there's more that we're going to unpack here. But I guess we should just sort of like stick with this version for now. Massive hit for them, went number one, otherwise we wouldn't be talking about it. But they never could follow up with it, and really, how could they? Doo-wop was about to die in about 2-3 years, and you just don't recover from that.
No, it's also, again, and I can't remember what song we were talking about, where when you have a big hit that's a sound that's not quite your own, you're probably not going to ever follow up with that. Like, it's a typical one-hit wonder phenomena of they couldn't put out something else similar because it's just not possible. So you can't really, if your hit was a certain sound, and then you start putting out the rest of your music, and it doesn't sound like that hit, people are just going to be like, even if it's great, people are going to judge you because it doesn't sound like that hit.
And I think we should give a bit of a credit to the lead singer, Jay Siegel, who claims that he impromptu sort of added and I'm not even going to try to do it, all the stuff in between. That was awful. I can only do it as...
I mean, if he did impromptu add that was what Solomon was actually singing in the original one. So I don't think that's true.
But yeah, and that's a pretty good point. But he did do a great job, regardless.
He did, yes. And he did a very good job. And even later in life, I watched the live version, and I was impressed that he still had the lungs to sing that.
Yeah, I can only do this as Michael Caine.
Oh, God.
Want to hear?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I gotta do the whole thing here. So in the jungle, the mighty jungle, the lion sleeps tonight. A weem away, a weem away, a weem away. We go. What God, but boy. Thank you. Come for the dog, stay for the impressions.
Yep.
You know what I found super interesting too? Like, we talked about Solomon, I think we have to go back to him also. The Tokens say they barely got paid for this. They got screwed by the record company.
They didn't get any credit. And then they tried years later to fight for some of the royalties, and the statute of limitations was up. It's like, well, it's kind of dumb if you didn't fight for that sooner, but there seemed to be a fair bit of bickering in amongst themselves, with members coming and going and splitting off and forming various subgroups and whatever. So maybe they just weren't paying attention. But also, I don't know what Weiss actually got for it, but his estate got nothing. There was an interesting one of his sons was basically advocating for Solomon Linda's estate to get some of royalties from the new movie, which we'll get to The Lion King shortly. But and he basically said in no uncertain terms, like, fine, the statute may have run out on this, but just fucking do the right thing and give some money for what, the intellectual property you're using.
And they certainly have it to give. And what we're referring to, and I don't think we're really speaking out of turn. So if people like this topic, I think I can speak for Andrea here when I say we recommend checking out this documentary. It's currently on Netflix. I don't know if it's on Netflix USA, but I know it's on Netflix Canada. The Lion's Share, which really talks about the history of this particular song, and really this one gentleman's push, a current South African. God, I'm blanking on his last name. So Rian Milan, and it's a really interesting documentary because it's done from his point of view, and he was a relative. I couldn't determine whether he was a son or grandson or just relative of the first prime minister of the apartheid regime in South Africa. And Rian became a music critic, and he followed his dream going to the United States, where he worked eventually for Rolling Stone. And he wrote a book, pretty much, I forget what it's called, but it's essentially about his experiences with his white guilt growing up as an elite white man in South Africa, but being in love with African music, and his sort of take on that. And a lot of this documentary is him trying to do, and I guess it really felt like you could feel the white guilt just pouring out of every scene that he's in. Where he's trying to do this one little thing for this one estate, and just feeling just pummeled at every turn, it feels like.
Yeah, it's really interesting to watch. There's two documentaries. There was the one. So there's The Lion's Share, and that was the newer one. That was 2019, right?
Right.
And then, but there was one that was, what was it called?
Lion's Trail, I think.
The Lion's Trail, yes. That came out in, I think, the 90s. And it basically highlighted Solomon Linda and the song and the injustice that was done to him. And it caused enough of a stir that some lawyers decided to get involved and offer their services to the estate. And literally take on Disney over their use of the song in The Lion King. And the lawyer estimated the royalties should have been somewhere in the $18 million range or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And I think it's something we also have to remember. This wasn't just like two movies. This was one of the most popular Broadway plays at one time that toured around, I don't know about around the world, but I know around North America.
I believe it toured around the world. It's also one of the highest grossing animated movies of all time. And yeah, it's a massive, massive moneymaker for Disney. So, and justifiably so. I still love that movie. But it's, so $18-something million in royalties, not necessarily all of it that would have gone to Linda's estate, but he should have gotten a good chunk of it. So the lawyers sued. The documentary gave them enough clout that they could take on Disney, and they settled out of court. And it's unclear exactly how much the settlement was for, but they did backdate some royalties and had a clause to extend the copyright to 2017, even though it would have expired in 2012, to give them 5 extra years of royalties. And they thought this was a great deal, and it probably was, except for the fact that Disney came out with a remake of The Lion King and a remake of the song in 2019.
Which they didn't get anything of.
Yeah.
I think the heartbreaking thing for me when I was watching that one documentary, and I'm referring to the more recent one. So when they did get awarded that, now we're talking about the the daughters, who are, I'm guessing, in their 50s, 60s, maybe older. One of them looked significantly. She could have been in her 80s. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea.
But, I mean, he was around 50 when he died, and she could easily be in her 60s, 70s.
I have no idea. I'm more referring to, because there was one who was significantly smaller than the other two, and she looked like she could have been like a lot older. But anyway, going back to, so you again have three women who are in this similar position of their dad. They don't speak English. Well, one of them does a little bit, so they're not speaking the legalese and all the other stuff that sort of comes with it. They're not necessarily understanding everything that they're signing when they're getting that back. And when they do get that settlement, the thing that blew my mind is that they put it in a trust because they figured they couldn't handle it.
Mm-hmm. And then they didn't necessarily listen to the trustees and kind of spent the money the way they wanted to anyways.
Well, and that's where everything just sort of like becomes so murky, where even Rihanna, like from him, he's not even sure what happened. They put a little thing at the end where they figured that each daughter would have received $250,000.
And I don't know that they even got that much, because in some of the articles I was reading, it really looks like the lawyers probably took close to $250,000.
Well, they probably did.
Because they were talking about having to fight something and hire lawyers in America, which cost over $50,000, and a few other things. So the lawyers took well into the six figures,
no doubt,
of whatever the settlement was. But at the same time, well, at least it appears that they don't have any debt and they own their homes and are reasonably comfortable at this point. But before they actually got this money, one of the daughters died of AIDS because she couldn't afford treatment.
Mm.
So, like, there's tragedy surrounding it, and there's just the greed. So we've talked about how nobody's really getting any royalties from this. So where the fuck is the money going?
Well, where it always goes. Yeah.
Yeah. Entirely to the record labels. And it's tragic, and it's greed, and it's so common, but yeah, very frustrating.
It's I don't even want to know. I mean, I do, but I don't actually want to know the names of the individuals who made the most money off the song, because it's going to be a bunch of people we've never heard of, all with bullshit titles.
It's basically gone into bonuses of shareholders and bigwigs at record labels.
Yeah, and the entire thing, it's a sad and disgusting story. I can't listen to this song with the same joy anymore. I can't. I just can't do it. It's been that way ever since I saw that one documentary. I try to.
Yeah.
I try to, but I can't do it. And I never will be able to, without sort of thinking about, like you just said, the greed of the individual over art. And I'm not this like super art guy, you know that about me, but it's all about doing what's right, and I do respect intellectual property more than anything.
Well, and I think that there was so much confusion and convolution in the path and the progress of this song. Mm-hmm. It's been recorded by a ton of different people. It's been performed by a billion more people.
True.
And all of that, every one of those performances and recordings should have been paying back to the person that wrote it. Mm-hmm. But they don't. And they're hiding under this, oh, well, we thought it was just a folk song, so we never bothered to copyright it because it's public domain. And it's like, well, actually it's not. It was written by a person.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's unfortunate because it's a fun song.
And even the original one is. And I think, again, I'm speaking for Andrea. I hate speaking for wide groups of people, but I'm going to try this a second time. I'm going to press my luck. No whammies, stop. Get that reference? No? Press my luck? Okay. No? All right. I think we both say that, hey, just YouTube after this, Solomon Linda Mbube, and just hear where it came from. We play it here, but I'm afraid of copyright. I don't want to get sued by the great team of Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really it is tragic, and I think once you sort of hear that, it's real. Again, it'll never be fun again. But you know what I got for you next week? Unless you have another closing thing.
Well, I do. I would like
Okay.
to end this discussion with a deep thought.
Uh-oh.
So just remember, at any given time, the urge to sing the line "Sleep Tonight" is only a whim away.
Is that original?
No, I wish I could take credit for that, but it is not original. My dad jokes are often recycled.
Well, did I ever tell you about like what the horny chicken said to the other horny chicken in France?
No.
Yeah, it said, "Hey, voulez-vous poulet avec moi?" That's a Buchner original.
Nice.
Thank you.
Well played.
Thank you.
I would never win one of those dad joke battles, but I do enjoy dad jokes far too much.
Yeah.
So, what are we doing next week?
Something that some dads might actually like, and it's a real punk of shit. And I don't think we're going to really be talking about any kind of appropriation, because there's no way that this guy. Well, actually, I don't know this for sure. I'm pretty sure he did not steal this from a guy in Africa. We are going to the first number one hit in the 80s. So the 70s bled into the 80s, and this song represents really neither of those decades.
Okay.
All right, so Andrea. Do you like pina coladas? Getting caught in the rain.
Caught in the rain.
Boom, boom, boom.
Okay, so I would like to say that my friend Brad talked about this style of music being yacht rock.
Yep.
Yeah. So, we're joining in the yacht rock.
I would say that this definitely is, because, I mean, like, listen, the guy who's saying it is Rupert Holmes. If that doesn't sound like a sailor to you.
Wait, Rupert Holmes? I thought that was Jimmy Buffett.
No.
Did Jimmy Buffett cover it?
Oh, probably.
Oh. Well, I know Jimmy Buffett covered it, but I did not know that it was a cover.
Well, I don't even know. Honestly, I don't even know whether who wrote this. I just know I hate this song and I think it's crap. But it always sort of like comes back like bad Chinese food. It just sort of shows up every now and then when you're watching some film and it comes up and everyone knows the lyrics. And if you go to karaoke, some jack off is going to sing it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the history behind this song.
That they will.
I don't know it. Maybe Jimmy Buffett did write it. We're going to learn this together. I do know this.
Oh, I could be wrong, but I thought it was the Pina Colada song,
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy Buffett. So I don't know if he wrote it. We will find out as we deep dive into the very, very deep song about a man who takes out a personal ad
Mm-hmm.
and ends up cheating on his wife with his wife.
Yeah, and they both handled it extraordinarily well. Which, okay, but I'll save all that comment for next week. I will.
We got lots to talk about.
Yeah, I will give you a deep dive though too. I do know this much. I know that Holmes wrote or was part of the group that had a minor hit 8 years before about cannibalism.
Okay. Okay, now I got something to really look forward to.
Yes. So we're going to talk about cannibalism and
adultery
and well, attempted adultery, and just saying that's okay. I don't understand how this could actually work out in 1980, 1990, 2000, 2010, 2020. The internet's a funny place, but it didn't exist then. Who knows?
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to it, Kirk.
All right. And stay out of the rain. And stay safe, everybody.
Good night. Good night. Good night. Good night.